Hello everyone, my motivational news story. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine a glass, already filled to the top with water. No matter how much more you try to pour in, nothing new can enter. Now think about your mind. How often is it already overflowing with fears, doubts, and worries, leaving no space for fresh ideas or growth? What if the secret to transforming your entire life was not in adding more, but in emptying what no longer serves you? A cluttered mind is one of the most silent barriers to growth that many people never recognize until it has already held them back for years. When the mind is filled with doubts, fears, and unnecessary thoughts, it acts like a heavy backpack that you carry every single day, whether you are conscious of it or not. Each doubt is like a stone, each fear like a brick, and each negative memory like an iron weight added to this pack. At first, you may not even notice it. You move forward in life, but slowly and heavily. Over time, the load increases, and you wonder why others seem to move faster. Why some people create new ideas with ease. And why some are able to remain calm while you feel restless inside. The truth is that the difference often lies not in talent or resources, but in the condition of the mind. A cluttered mind becomes noisy. Imagine a room where 20 radios are playing at the same time. Each radio is tuned to a different channel. One talks about fear of failure, another about painful memories, another about judgment from others, and yet another about financial worries. Now try to focus on a single inspiring message in that room. It is nearly impossible. The same thing happens inside your mind when you allow it to be cluttered with endless streams of thoughts. When fear and doubt dominate the space, clarity disappears. The ability to generate new solutions, to think creatively, or even to simply focus on the task at hand becomes extremely difficult. This is why many people say they feel stuck. It is not that opportunities do not exist. It is that the clutter inside blocks their vision from seeing what is possible. Growth requires clarity, and clarity requires space. Just as a farmer cannot plant seeds in soil that is already filled with rocks and weeds, you cannot plant ideas in a mind that is overflowing with chaos. Doubts choke the roots of new possibilities. Fears act as pests that eat away at your confidence. And negative comparisons with others prevent you from watering your own potential. Clearing the mind is like preparing fresh, fertile ground. When the soil is open and ready, even a small seed has the power to grow into a tree. Similarly, when the mind is free of unnecessary baggage, even a small idea can transform into something powerful and life-changing. Another problem with a cluttered mind is that it traps you in the past and future rather than allowing you to live in the present. Thoughts of regret keep pulling you backward, while fears of what might happen keep dragging you forward into anxiety. With such distractions, you miss the opportunities and lessons that are happening right now, in this very moment. Growth can only happen in the present. When your mind is full of yesterday's pain or tomorrow's worries, you are absent from today, and that absence costs you growth. Emptying the mind from those thoughts is not about forgetting, but about choosing what deserves your attention. It is about recognizing that energy wasted on replaying fears could instead be used to create progress today. A cluttered mind also builds false limitations. When you continuously think of doubts, they eventually feel like truths. You begin to believe you are not capable, not strong enough, or not worthy of certain goals. These beliefs are not real, but they become powerful because you repeat them in your mind over and over again. They form invisible walls around your potential. You do not step beyond them, not because you cannot, but because you have convinced yourself that you should not. The danger here is that you live inside a prison built not by reality, but by your own cluttered thoughts. Emptying the mind removes those walls and shows you the open space that was always around you. Finally, it is important to realize that a cluttered mind is not solved by more thinking. Many people try to fix their mental overload by analyzing more, worrying more, or forcing solutions through pressure. But that only adds more noise. The answer is in silence, in stepping back, in creating mental emptiness, so that clarity can naturally emerge. Just as muddy water becomes clear when left undisturbed, the mind also gains clarity when you stop feeding it with endless, unnecessary thoughts. From that clarity comes focus, and from focus comes growth. Letting go is one of the most powerful, but often the most difficult skills a person can develop in life. People carry with them the weight of past mistakes, the sting of failures, the bitterness of broken relationships, and the shadows of fears that once seemed too real. These memories and beliefs build up inside, quietly shaping how one thinks, how one acts, and how one views the future. They create a cage, and many do not even realize that the bars of this cage are made not of steel, but of their own thoughts. The power of letting go is in the realization that you do not have to carry everything with you. You can release what no longer serves you and create space for what will help you grow. Imagine someone holding a glass of water. At first, it is light and easy to hold. But as the minutes pass, the weight feels heavier, not because the water has changed, but because the person's arm grows tired. The same is true for emotional burdens. A mistake you made 5 years ago may still feel heavy today, not because it has grown in size, but because you have carried it for so long. The act of letting go is like putting the glass down. It does not erase the water, but it frees your hand so you can hold something new. Without this action, your strength is drained, your focus is consumed, and your energy is wasted on what cannot be changed. Letting go does not mean you forget. It does not mean the past becomes unimportant. What it means is that you stop giving the past control over your present. People often replay failures in their mind, thinking that if they analyze them enough, they will change their meaning. But what truly happens is that the failure keeps living long after it should have been buried. The power of letting go is in recognizing that the past cannot be rewritten, only learned from. Once the lesson is understood, holding on to the pain is no longer useful. It becomes a form of self-punishment, and no growth can come from punishing yourself endlessly. Another part of letting go is releasing negative beliefs that others may have placed in your mind. Perhaps someone told you that you were not capable, not talented enough, or not worthy of success. Over time, these words echo so loudly that you begin to believe them. But these beliefs are not truths. They are weights handed to you by others, and you have the choice to drop them. When you let go of such beliefs, you free yourself from chains that were never meant to hold you. This release allows you to see yourself not through the broken lens of criticism, but through the clear vision of your true potential. Letting go also applies to expectations. Many people suffer because they hold rigid images of how life should be. They expect certain results, certain timelines, and certain paths. When reality does not match these images, they feel defeated. But life rarely moves according to fixed expectations. It flows with its own rhythm. To let go of expectations is not to give up ambition, but to remain open to possibilities. It is to understand that sometimes life brings you to places far better than what you had imagined, but you will miss them if you are too attached to the path you thought was the only way. Releasing those expectations allows you to adjust, to remain flexible, and to grow through experiences rather than resist them. There is also a quiet strength in forgiving, whether forgiving others or forgiving yourself. Forgiveness is one of the deepest forms of letting go. When you hold anger toward someone, you carry their actions with you, like a fire that never dies. That fire consumes your energy, your peace, and even your health. Forgiving does not mean excusing what happened. It means refusing to let the past harm you any longer. The same applies to forgiving yourself. Too many people chain themselves to guilt for things they cannot change. Letting go through forgiveness is choosing freedom over pain, peace over anger, and growth over bitterness. The transformation that comes from letting go is almost invisible at first. It feels like a small shift. A little more space in your chest, a little more calm in your thoughts. But as time passes, that small release creates room for extraordinary changes. You notice that your mind is lighter. Your creativity flows more freely. And your vision of the future is no longer blocked by shadows of the past. You begin to see opportunities where before you saw only obstacles. You begin to dream again, not as a prisoner of what was, but as a creator of what can be. The power of letting go is not in erasing your story, but in choosing which chapters still deserve your energy. The idea of a beginner's mindset is rooted in the simple truth that the more open your mind is, the more you can grow. A beginner approaches life without the weight of assumptions, judgments, or rigid knowledge. A beginner does not claim to know everything, and because of that, possibilities remain endless. When someone holds a beginner's mindset, every experience is seen as fresh, every challenge as an opportunity to learn, and every failure as a stepping stone rather than a dead end. In contrast, when the mind is closed with the belief that it already knows enough, growth stops. Life becomes predictable, repetitive, and limited because the doors to discovery are shut before they can even be knocked on. Think of a child exploring the world. A child looks at things with curiosity, touches everything, asks endless questions, and is never ashamed to admit they do not know something. That is the spirit of the beginner's mind. Curiosity becomes a powerful fuel because it leads to exploration and innovation. Adults often lose this spark because they fear appearing inexperienced or foolish. They choose to hide behind the comfort of what they already know, and in doing so, they lock themselves in a small room with no windows. But those who choose to embrace the mindset of a beginner unlock a vast horizon where learning never ends. A beginner's mindset is not about ignoring the wisdom you already have. It is about holding that wisdom lightly, being willing to put it aside to see something from a new perspective. Sometimes knowledge can become a trap because it makes you overconfident. You begin to think there is only one way to solve a problem or only one path to success. This rigidity blinds you to other solutions that might be simpler, more creative, or more effective. A beginner, on the other hand, approaches challenges without these limitations. They ask different questions, they try different methods, and because of that, they often discover breakthroughs that the so-called experts miss. There is also humility in the beginner's mindset. It takes courage to admit you do not know everything, and even more courage to learn from those who may seem less experienced than you. But humility opens the door to wisdom. Read by Billy Dixon. When you empty your pride and ego, you make space for others to teach you. And in that exchange, you gain knowledge you could never have found on your own. A beginner values growth over appearance. They do not need to look smart. They need to become better. That simple shift creates a powerful foundation for lifelong improvement. Another important aspect of this mindset is resilience. Beginners know they will make mistakes, and they do not fear them. In fact, they expect them. Each mistake is just part of the journey, not a final judgment on their worth. This attitude builds strength, because instead of quitting after a failure, a beginner sees it as feedback. They adjust, they improve, and they continue forward. Meanwhile, those with a fixed mindset, who believe they must already know everything, are often shattered by failure because it threatens their identity. By embracing the beginner's way of thinking, you become more flexible and adaptable, qualities that are essential in a world that changes constantly. Creativity also flows naturally from this state of mind. A beginner is not boxed in by the rules of how things are usually done. They dare to experiment, to mix ideas, to break traditions, and to see beyond limitations. Many of the greatest innovations in history came from individuals who approached a field not as experts, but as outsiders with fresh eyes. Their lack of attachment to established norms gave them freedom to imagine something new. That is the power of looking at life through the lens of curiosity rather than the lens of certainty. Living with a beginner's mindset also brings a sense of joy. When you are not burdened by the pressure to know it all, life becomes lighter. Every new skill you attempt, whether you succeed quickly or struggle through, becomes an adventure. Every conversation becomes a chance to learn something unexpected. Even setbacks become opportunities to grow rather than reasons to despair. This joy fuels motivation, making the path of growth less about struggle and more about discovery. When you embrace this way of thinking, your relationships also improve. You listen more deeply, ask more questions, and seek to understand others, instead of assuming you already know their story. This openness builds stronger connections, whether in friendships, family, or work. People feel valued when they are truly heard. And a beginner's mindset gives you the patience and humility to listen with genuine interest, rather than with the intent to prove yourself right. At its core, the beginner's mindset is about freedom. Freedom from the chains of ego, freedom from the fear of failure, freedom from the weight of pretending to know everything. It allows you to remain open to the endless lessons that life constantly offers. It keeps your spirit young, your heart curious, and your vision clear. With this mindset, growth is not just possible. It is inevitable. Because every moment becomes an opportunity to learn, and every day becomes a chance to begin again. Focus and clarity are two forces that shape the direction of a person's life, more than almost anything else. A mind without focus is like a beam of light scattered in every direction. It shines, but it does not burn through anything. A focused mind, however, is like a laser, cutting through obstacles and reaching its target with precision. Clarity is what tells you where that target lies. And focus is the discipline that carries you toward it without being distracted. When the two come together, they create a power that can transform ordinary efforts into extraordinary achievements. The modern world constantly competes for attention. Notifications, social media, opinions, fears, and responsibilities all fight to occupy the mind. Without clarity, a person becomes lost in this noise, chasing one thing after another without direction. They work hard, but achieve little because their energy is scattered. Imagine someone rowing a boat in circles. So much movement, but no progress. Clarity provides the compass. It cuts through confusion and gives you a sense of where you are going. With clarity, the mind stops asking 100 questions at once and instead focuses on the one question that matters. What is the next meaningful step? Focus is the ability to protect that clarity. Even when you know where you are going, the temptation to drift off course is strong. Distractions come disguised as opportunities. Fears whisper reasons to quit, and habits of procrastination pull you away. Focus acts as the shield against these forces. It is the discipline of saying no to what does not align with your vision, no matter how shiny it looks in the moment. Focus sharpens your time, your energy, and your resources toward what truly matters. It allows you to do one thing with excellence rather than many things with mediocrity. Clarity also frees you from the burden of overthinking. Many people remain stuck not because they are incapable, but because they are unsure of what they really want. They hesitate, change directions, and question themselves endlessly. This hesitation drains more energy than action ever could. When you have clarity, decisions become lighter. You stop doubting whether every step is the right one and instead commit to moving forward. Even if mistakes happen, clarity keeps you learning from them rather than being paralyzed by them. Each failure becomes a teacher instead of a wall because the direction remains visible. Focus, on the other hand, creates depth. In a distracted world, most people live on the surface of things. They try a little of everything, but master nothing. Focus is what allows you to dig deep, to move beyond the surface and discover the richness that lies below. It is the difference between someone who dabbles in music and someone who becomes a great musician, between someone who starts a business and someone who builds a lasting company. The focused person chooses one path and walks it with intensity, while others scatter their energy in all directions and wonder why nothing meaningful grows. Another powerful effect of focus and clarity is peace of mind. Chaos is born from indecision and distraction. When the mind is torn in many directions, it feels restless and exhausted, even when little is accomplished. But when you are clear on your purpose and focused on your path, your mind calms down. The noise fades because you no longer need to chase every possibility. You know what belongs to your journey and what does not. This peace is not laziness, it is the steady confidence of knowing that your energy is being used wisely. Focus and clarity also attract opportunities. People who are clear in their vision and consistent in their focus naturally stand out. Others trust them, follow them, and offer them support because they see direction and purpose in their actions. Clarity shines outward. It communicates to the world who you are and what you stand for. Focus proves that you are serious about it, not just in words, but in consistent effort. Together, they build credibility and magnetize the right people and resources toward you. It is also important to understand that clarity is not something you find once and keep forever. It requires reflection, self-awareness, and honesty. Life changes, goals shift, and clarity must be renewed. Focus then becomes the tool to hold that clarity in daily practice, to resist being pulled back into confusion. The two must work together like breath and heartbeat. Without clarity, focus becomes wasted effort. Without focus, clarity becomes an unused vision. Only when both are present does true growth happen. At its essence, focus and clarity transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. They give direction to energy, discipline to passion, and meaning to action. They turn dreams into plans, plans into steps, and steps into results. A clear mind sees the destination. A focused spirit walks the path, and together, they make what once seemed impossible become real. Space for growth is one of the most overlooked elements in the journey of self-development, yet it is the foundation on which transformation is built. Imagine a cup already filled to the brim with water. No matter how much more you try to pour in, nothing new can enter because the cup is already overflowing. The mind works in the same way. When it is filled with clutter, negativity, or rigid beliefs, there is no room left for new knowledge, fresh opportunities, or unexpected lessons. Creating space for growth means emptying yourself of what no longer serves you so that something greater can take its place. It is the practice of opening a door where before there was only a wall. Growth requires both expansion and release. Too many people want to grow without letting go, but true growth demands space. A tree cannot rise tall if its roots are bound in a small pot. It must be transplanted into open soil, where its roots can spread, where there is air, water, and light enough to sustain its growth. In life, the same principle applies. Your potential cannot flourish if you keep yourself confined in the tight boundaries of old thinking, toxic environments, or limiting habits. By creating space, whether mental, emotional, or even physical, you provide the nourishment your growth has been waiting for. This space is not emptiness for the sake of emptiness. It is purposeful openness. When you clear away distractions, you make room for focus. When you release negative relationships, you create space for meaningful ones. When you silence the noise of constant worry, you open a channel for ideas and inspiration. Space becomes the container in which growth can happen, just as silence becomes the background that allows music to be heard. Without that silence, the notes lose their beauty. Without space, your growth loses its chance to breathe. Another important dimension of space for growth is patience. People often demand results quickly, expecting transformation overnight. But growth has its own rhythm, like seasons in nature. A farmer does not plant seeds today and demand fruit tomorrow. They prepare the soil, water it, and allow time for nature to work. The soil must remain open and undisturbed, giving the seed the quiet space to push its roots down and its shoots upward. If you constantly dig into the soil to check progress, you harm the very growth you seek. In the same way, when you give yourself space, patience, rest, and the freedom to fail and try again, you allow your potential to unfold naturally. Space for growth also means protecting your inner environment. If your schedule is packed with endless tasks, if your mind is flooded with worries, and if your heart is full of resentment, there will be little space left to pursue what truly matters. Protecting your space may mean saying no more often, setting boundaries, and choosing carefully what you allow into your life. Many people believe growth comes from adding more commitments, more responsibilities, more achievements, but often it comes from subtracting. By removing what drains you, you make room for what strengthens you. This principle is visible in every area of life. In learning, the more open your mind is, the easier it is to absorb new knowledge. In creativity, the more you clear your head of rigid expectations, the freer your imagination flows. In relationships, the more you release grudges, the deeper your connections become. In opportunities, the more you let go of outdated goals, the quicker you notice new doors opening. Growth is not forced, it emerges naturally when there is space to expand. Creating space also means embracing uncertainty. Growth often arrives disguised as something unfamiliar. If your mind is already packed with fixed ideas of how life must look, you will resist anything that does not fit the picture. But when you leave space, you remain open to surprises. You allow life to teach you lessons you never expected, to lead you to paths you never considered. This openness transforms obstacles into teachers and failures into opportunities. What once felt like an ending becomes, in the presence of space, a beginning. Most importantly, space for growth is about trusting yourself. It is about believing that if you let go of what is unnecessary, something better will come to fill the void. Fear makes people cling to what is familiar, even if it is painful, because the unknown feels risky. But growth cannot exist without the unknown. By creating space, you step into that risk with courage, and in doing so, you invite transformation into your life. When the mind, heart, and life are given room to breathe, growth becomes inevitable. Like a seed in fertile soil, like a tree reaching for the sky, you too rise higher when there is space around you. The more you clear, the more you can create. The more you release, the more you can receive. Space is not emptiness. It is the birthplace of possibility, the ground where growth takes root and blossoms into its full potential. Transformation stories carry the deepest lessons because they show how change is not just an idea, but a living reality. Imagine a person weighed down by endless thoughts, doubts, and fears, moving through life with no space left for clarity. Every morning they wake up with the noise of yesterday's mistakes echoing in their head, and every night they sleep with the worry of tomorrow pressing heavily on their chest. They feel trapped, not because the world has locked them in a prison, but because their mind has built walls so high that they cannot see beyond them. Yet transformation begins the moment they decide to empty their mind, to release the clutter that has chained them for so long, and to step into life with openness and freedom. The story of transformation often begins with struggle. This person tries to succeed by working harder, pushing themselves, and filling their schedule with endless activities. But the harder they try, the heavier life feels. Success remains distant because no matter how much effort they invest, the clutter inside pulls them back. It is like running with a rope tied around your waist. The body moves forward, but the rope keeps dragging you back. One day, in exhaustion, they realize that the rope is not tied by others, it is tied by their own thoughts. This realization is the seed of change. At first, letting go feels uncomfortable. The mind clings tightly to familiar fears because they have been companions for so long. The idea of emptying the mind feels risky, as though letting go of the clutter means losing control. But slowly, they begin to release one weight at a time. A mistake that once haunted them is now seen as a lesson. A failure that once defined them is now understood as a step in growth. A fear of judgment is replaced by the courage to take a single step forward. With every release, the noise inside grows quieter, and in that quiet, clarity begins to emerge. The transformation deepens when they start to live with a beginner's mindset. Instead of pretending to know everything, they allow themselves to learn again. They approach challenges with curiosity, as though seeing life for the first time. This openness allows them to discover paths they never noticed before. What once looked like dead ends now appear as doors. Their heart becomes lighter because they are no longer burdened by the pressure of perfection. Each mistake becomes a teacher rather than a punishment, and every new experience becomes a chance to grow. With clarity, they begin to focus. Instead of chasing many things at once, they choose one meaningful direction. Distractions that once consumed their energy now lose their power because the vision ahead is stronger than the noise around them. They learn to say no to what does not serve their purpose, and in doing so, they gain strength to say yes to what truly matters. Their actions, once scattered and weak, now become sharp and intentional. The energy that was once wasted in confusion is now transformed into progress. As their mind becomes clearer, space for growth opens up. The fears, doubts, and unnecessary baggage that once filled their inner world are gone, and in their place is room for new opportunities. They discover talents they had ignored, passions they had buried, and strengths they had doubted. Relationships improve because they no longer carry resentment, and creativity flows because they are no longer trapped in rigid thinking. The space inside allows them to receive what life has been offering all along, but what they could never see before through the clutter. The transformation story reaches its most powerful point when they begin to inspire others. People notice the change not because they boast about it, but because the light inside them shines naturally. Where once there was restlessness, now there is calm. Where once there was fear, now there is courage. Where once there was confusion, now there is clarity. Their life becomes a living example of the power of an empty mind. A mind free enough to grow, open enough to learn, and strong enough to lead. The beauty of such transformation is that it does not require extraordinary circumstances. It begins with ordinary choices made consistently. The choice to let go of the past, the choice to remain open to learning, the choice to focus on what matters, and the choice to create space for growth. These choices, repeated over time, turn into a new way of living. What seemed impossible becomes natural, and what once felt like a burden becomes a story of victory. In the end, the person who once lived as a prisoner of their own thoughts emerges as someone free, not because life outside has changed dramatically, but because the world inside has been renewed. Their transformation shows that the mind, when emptied of clutter and opened with intention, becomes the birthplace of strength, clarity, and limitless growth. When you empty your mind, you unlock the doorway to freedom, clarity, and transformation. By releasing doubts and fears, by letting go of the past, by embracing the curiosity of a beginner, by sharpening your focus, by creating space for new growth, and by living the story of change with courage, you give yourself the chance to rise beyond limitations. Life does not demand that you carry every weight. It invites you to let go and walk forward lighter, stronger, and wiser. The real power lies not in what you hold on to, but in what you release, for only an empty mind can be filled with new possibilities, and only an open heart can step into the extraordinary future waiting ahead. Like and subscribe to our channel Dream Chase to watch the next video.